live. Using this as my mic. Okay, refresh that page.
There it is.
All right, click it. Okay, cool. Okay, so if I go here, let's say I'm at this, if I'm looking up, because
Private?
no, I had to go live. So I am, okay, so that happened? Okay, cool. Okay, now, like, type to me real quick. Like, just say, like, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Hello there. Hello there. Okay. Hello there. Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to go in another room. Okay. And I want you to type to me, and we're going to have a regular conversation. Oh shit! Did someone else just message? I want you to type to me, and we're going to have a regular conversation. Oh shit! Did someone else just message? Someone else just messaged? Well, hello. I'm actually figuring out the chat real quick. So, yeah. Well, hello. I'm actually figuring out the chat real quick. So, yeah. Well, hello. I'm actually figuring out the chat. Oh, so what I will do is I will just take off. Okay. Okay, how is that, everybody? Is there any echo now? So here's a fun thing. It's not going to be on tomorrow's video, so let's just have fun. I'm actually, I was actually editing one of the newest videos right there. And the Supreme Commander, Kim Jong-un, was actually, well, of course, we know him in the series, you know, he was the Supreme Commander. But here's this, something that's pretty interesting. There is a North Korean soccer player also known as Kim Myung-won. Isn't that fun? You know what? I got a really cool idea. I'm just gonna put this in. Cool. So now I can hear me in the chat, but now you guys cannot hear me, which is great. What I mean is you won't hear the echo, so there won't be any weird feedback. Okay, you know what? Let's do this. This might be fun. Hold on. Let's see. It's not popping up. It did give a divine atmosphere, didn't it? Okay, so since I have a regular viewer in the stream, let me ask this. So, wow, that is crazy. So, some stuff that I'm showing here does not pop up in the stream. That's crazy. All right, so let me ask this. Would you prefer me to have segments tomorrow? Something that I normally couldn't put in a video. Or would you rather me try to do a Shogun 2 Total War play and we can just all just chat? Which do you guys prefer? So I wouldn't know what the second segment would be, but the first segment would slightly be a video response, but not really. The subject would be about. I'd kind of like to do if Spain could actually have taken Ming China in the 16th century, because it is something that they actually did have a plan to try to do. So basically, I would walk you through my methodology about how I believe whether they could or they couldn't, and we'd do a brief overview of, like, say, weapons and tactics, and I could take you to some of the sites that I would use. What about you, Yannick? Would you still prefer the Total War stream? Because if I could figure out how to do both, I'd love to do both. Let me test this. Does this come up? What? But it doesn't pop anything up. That's weird. So it's definitely something that I would like to spread out over a period of time. I have absolutely no idea how many people are actually going to tune in for the stream. I'm hoping quite a few people, as this will actually get my watch time up. But it's something that, how do I say? It's I'm new to streaming, so it on this end it's actually kind of weird. Like a week you cover one topic and then 2 weeks here you do a game, or if you saw something interesting you switch between the two. Yeah, so if the live stream is even somewhat successful, it's something that I'm going to do at least once a month. The channel right now only uploads once every week, but as the channel grows, it's something that I'm wanting to do 2 times every week. It's really hard right now because I'm basically the editor, and I have to write and research, uh, film. Uh, it it takes a lot of time. It really does. But the streaming is something that if I can figure out how to do effectively, I can just pop in here, cover like a subject. Like I said, like say like Ming China and Spain isn't really something that I can cover in my channel by itself because it's Japan at war, so it should be, focus on Japan. But Japan does actually get involved in that subject just a little bit. But it gives me it gives me the opportunity to cover history topics that wouldn't have to have a full video just focus on it. So we can just do casual segments and everything. Because I know some people really like the knight versus samurai debate, and what I would totally do is I'd cover some of that in the live stream. Just give my thoughts and opinions, and that's what they would mostly be, is thoughts and opinions, as opposed to my videos, which I try to present as just as like facts and like hard evidence. So I guess we're like settled then. Like we'll do segments, maybe Q&A, and then if we have time, like and there's still people watching and I can figure it out, and that's the big thing. If I can figure it out, then we could do the Shogun 2 Total War like run through. I do have a couple of friends that do art, but it's nothing that would technically be relevant to this channel. A lot of them do like very Dadaist art, which I don't know if you know what that is. It's pretty freaking weird. Yeah, I was definitely thinking about doing the community post. The weird thing about the community post is like sometimes like it seems like a lot of people see them, and then sometimes like not a lot of people see them. So I don't really know like if the feedback from that would be like accurate or not, at least right now. And when I say right now, I mean because we're growing. But I will say this though, it does seem like this test that we have going currently. I mean, it seems like it's working. So that's great. Whoa. Look, I promise you, if we get like dumb people in the chat, like I will be doing this like quite a bit. Like here's the thing. I'm a very I'm a very like, how do I say this? I'm a I'm a very like pointed person, and like some people have like arguments and they feel things like, I don't know if you guys have ever like truly like scanned through the comment sections, but we've had like some pretty toxic people since day one. I do a really good job of moderating most of it, but man, some of the people, they say some crazy stuff. Like, so we'll see. Maybe we'll get like a nice little healthy debate in like the chat, which is, and that's the thing, is like I would like to foster like a healthy debate on like views and viewpoints, because some of the things that I want to like cover over, that's what they really are, is their views, their opinions. They're not they're not definite facts. Like we have like I want to do the segment over like if Spain could take over like Ming China. There's a lot of things that we would actually have to figure in too, like logistics and everything. Like we can't just cover like weapons, armor, and tactics, because as we like, I mean, just in history, just look at like the Vietnamese. The Vietnamese, like for all intents and purposes, did defeat America in the Vietnam conflict. So weapons and armor and stuff like that aren't the only things to figure in. Oh, like what kind of crazy things do they say? So I had a argument with this one person who, and I get why the video might have been a little bit triggering for some. The very first video in the series, it's called "A Weak China with a question mark," and I put it as a question mark simply because I I was trying to present this in the way like, what was Hideyoshi, what were the daimyo in Japan thinking, and I put out like the reasons that I could find, and this person who says they were Chinese, I don't know. Like the internet's hard to discover if any of that's true or not. Anyway, so the conversation started with like him just like disagreeing with the video, and he said certain things where I was like, okay, but I never said that in the video. I never said that. Like, I never like verbatim say like mean China was weak. It was not a weak country, but he said that I did. And I asked him like if you did watch the video, and he said no. And then it just melted down into the, okay, well, I'm Asian, you're not, ergo, I know more about it than you. And I was like, okay, so you won't watch my video, and now you're saying that simply because you're Asian and I'm not, that means you empirically are going to know more about this subject than me. I don't know how to tolerate that, and I don't know how to take that person seriously. That is just such that's such a bad faith argument. Oh, and I should say that's not even the people who just like call me slurs like instantly, which is radically crazy if you really think about it. Hey, Sean Irish. So basically, what's happening is that this is a test. We are going to be doing a live stream tomorrow morning. It's going to start at 11:30 a.m. That is my time. I live near Houston, Texas, so I'm not sure what time zone that's in. And we are actually going to be covering a few segments tomorrow. Yeah, I did laugh at first, but then I don't know if you've realized, but some of my videos, like it seems like there's just like one or two people that just like dislike every single video I do, and you start to realize that like if your YouTube channel is as small as mine, it kind of is fragile. Now, thankfully, YouTube's algorithm is good enough to where eventually it'll just eliminate that person's effect in the algorithm altogether. But it, when you have people that start arguments and they dislike videos and everything, they refuse to listen to your information, your side of things, why you're putting out the information you do, you start to realize that these people are not the kind of people that I want in my community. If you disagree with my content or whatever, I am totally up to like hearing you out, having a debate, so long as you have a good sound reason. But when the total of your argument is, hey, I didn't watch your video, but I hate your video, and also you're white and I'm not, therefore my information is going to be better than yours, and it's like, first of all, dude, that I I can't I can't help that. I don't. Well, I appreciate being viewed as a reliable source. The biggest thing for me is that I try to, especially in the Imjin War series, I try to make sure that if I don't know something or it's not readily available, I will put out there that like I don't know. This is my educated guess based off of information. Which some of the next couple of videos I had to do that, but I I don't know. Like the facts of the matter is that this is all something that happened hundreds of years ago. There's three different sides, three different viewpoints. Some of it's romanticized, some of it's just BS, and I just put out the best that I can and try to be as honest as I can when I don't know something. And you're right, that is not an argument at all, and that's why I get rid of comments like that, because it's not an argument. It's just toxicity, and we can't have people like that in our community. And that's what this is trying to be. I am trying to build this as a community. Episode 1, actually, you have to click the playlist. I have no idea why YouTube does that. But yeah, episode 1 is in the playlist. By the way, where is everybody from? Can everybody in the chat just tell me where they're from real quick? I'm out of Texas, so it is already hot as hell in this room. What's the temperature like there in Canada? I will keep up comments if they disagree with me because I think disagreement is. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But when race and other slurs start to enter into the equation, I won't tolerate it. Wow. So basically, the chat is literally all over the world right now. That is, guys, that's freaking awesome. I love this. Ah, debate not hate. I love that. That should be a T-shirt. Well, like I gotta be honest. Like I'm very envious of everybody right now because it seems like everybody is in a lot. And I like colder weather. So, greetings from America. Heck yeah, son. Yeah, no, but seriously, I don't know if you can tell, but there is a perspiration on my forehead, and that is a direct causation of living in the great state of Texas. I will take your English chill because I spent a good part of my childhood in Anchorage, Alaska, and I am all about cold weather. Because see, here's the thing about cold weather. Cold weather, you can bundle up, you can put on nice jackets. I have a leather jacket that I love. I love this jacket. And guess what? I can only wear it like 2 months out of the entire year. Just 2 months. It's a tragedy. I'm you know what? I'm down for it. And you know what? Here's the best part. When we get merch going, so many people would be like, "What the heck does this have to do with this channel?" And I'd be like, "See, you're not an OG member. You weren't here for the test stream." What in my opinion is the coolest Japanese weapon? You know what? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to come I will answer this really quickly right now, but ask me tomorrow and we will actually like go into it like and I'll show you pictures and everything what I mean. But my in my opinion the coolest Japanese weapon is the frickin' Yari. And it's because there's so many variations. I've seen over 30 different variations and I am positive I have not seen them all. Oh, is it buffering? Like that's it might be you. I don't know. Like this is the first time I've ever set up a live stream. It's on like a 5 second delay, but Tessin, that's the Iron Fan, right? There's so many weapons I have to keep track of. Right? That's a yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that is a really cool weapon. It's very underrated too. Um, I do martial arts, and I've seen it used a couple times, and it always really impresses me. The people who are really good with it. And hey, you know what the greatest? Hey, chat, you know what the greatest thing about the spear is? Is that the spear, if you just downsize it, and then you take a stick with a string and you fire it, boom, the spear is now a bow. That's what it is. It's now an arrow shaft. Yeah, so from what I know about the Tessin that was actually you're talking about the one that actually like folded out and everything. That one, believe it or not, most pretty much every single one that I've seen has been Edo period Japan. Now the cool thing is that there was establishments where you couldn't bring in swords or anything. Not even like even if you're a samurai, like some of the places would actually ask you to keep even your short sword by the door. Crazy enough. So a lot of people actually started having that because it's concealed and they could be really heavy. The one that I saw on eBay for sale was 8 pounds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is. There you go. Which, by the way, um, I'm blanking on the name right now, but Japan did have war darts. I'm really sorry that the buffering is annoying you. I don't know what it is. It might be me. I live out in the woods. Like I'm not kidding. If I was to like open the windows and everything, you'd see some houses, but you'd see like a lot of trees. Like I quite literally live in the woods. A sword is heavier. A sword, your typical like I don't know like the metric conversion, but the swords are typically around 2 to 2.5 pounds, with Japanese swords typically being around 2.5 to 3 pounds. If we're talking about something like a blade inch of like 26-32 inches, like your Germanic sword, your Zweihander, that's going to be your 6 to 8 pounds. So that's crazy. Shuriken. I'm not talking about shuriken. Okay, you know what? Let's see if where is it? Let's see. Well, let's take a look real quick, just real quick, guys. See if we can find one of those Japanese war darts that I'm talking about. Because I'm blanking on the Japanese name. Rope dart, no. Steel hole. They're actually showing darts. Because basically what I'm talking about is about like 2.5 to 3 feet, and it literally uses like a miniaturized Yari head. See these? Yeah, this is the shuriken. This is what you're talking about. Our bow shuriken. Well, what I'm specifically talking about is this big. It actually uses a Senkaku Yari head, a miniaturized one. The steel goes through the shaft, and then it actually does have like the feathered what do they call them, plumes, the feathers. But you actually do throw them just like darts. Yeah, like they're basically like javelins. The put Japanese javelin because that. Ah, here we go, Uchine. There it is. Look at this, guys. Look at this. Look how cool this is. Two hands. There you go. Come on, guys. Take a look at this. You can't tell me, hold on. You can't tell me that this isn't cool as hell. The air one in the Met. Is it like this one? This is the one we're talking about, right? Yeah, because this one's. I agree. If we're talking about this one, yes, this one is also like really cool. Why are you zooming out? Do not zoom out. Look at that. I gotta be honest, guys. This right here is the reason why like I love Japanese spears and anything like that. Look, that triangular blade. Oof. Rochin and Tinbei. Hello, Benkei. Yeah, the war darts and javelins being a thing is like there's so many weapons, pieces of armor and things like that. They're very obscure. Actually, when anyone actually studies like I do, um, all this stuff becomes incredibly hard to track down because it's like Socrates said, like a wise man knows he knows nothing, and I'm quite aware of how little I actually know because this is like an ocean of information. Yes, it is. It is to stabilize in flight. Now, what were we talking about? Yes, definitely let me know if it is better. Is this the one we're talking about with the feathered plumes? Because I think I've actually posted this. Ooh, 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 not doing that. But you see what I'm saying? Like how it's like a miniature spearhead. It might be me, Sean. I have no idea. Is the voice? The plume was the first one we saw. Yeah. So here's the crazy thing. I've seen actual pictures of actual of just all the different javelins, and I guess you call this one like a dart. The crazy thing is that none of them are the same. It almost feels like every single one of them is just like handmade, and they're all unique, which is something that if you study Japanese weapons long enough, you start to realize is that a lot of the Japanese weapons are unique, and even the design and like how they're made, like this right here is like where I guess you would say the pin would go in, but I've actually seen some that have like three copper pins. I saw one where it was like one here, and then on the other side, in between the feathers, it was like right down here. But what kind of bird would get you those feathers? You know what? Let's see if the Metropolitan Museum would know. Let's see. References. Nope, no more information, I guess. What kind of bird? That's a great question. I don't want to say crane, but possibly rooster. Japanese roosters have really big feathers. In fact, they actually used to put like rooster feathers sometimes in their helmets. It definitely could be goose. It could be goose. Unfortunately, it's in this condition, and I'll be honest, I don't know that much about Japanese birds. Um, and here's the other thing: a lot of people always rule this out. It could always be import. Oh well, then yeah. I mean, if you actually have like geese feathers that do look like this, I would be willing to. I'd definitely believe that. Guys, we have the great Anthony Cummins in chat. I am honored. That is freaking awesome. Hello. Yeah, I don't know what I can really do about the lag, unfortunately. Is it doesn't seem like there's any lag in the voice. I guess that's good. And I think it's just like on the camera itself, which really sucks. But this is actually the highest speed internet that is even available out here in the sticks, in the woods. Can I recommend a book about Japanese weapons? Well, I tell you what. One second. Okay, so I was asked by someone in the chat to recommend a book on Japanese weapons. I cannot recommend a single book because there is so many of them, and the best books on Japanese weapons are going to cover specific things, such as swords, pole arms. Pole arms is a very complicated subject, like for Japanese weapons. The one that I would recommend that covers a decent variety of Japanese weapons that most people have never heard of would be this right here. Just because it covers a bunch of like truncheon style weapons, like the Tessin, as it was mentioned in the chat before, is in here. Kubutawari. It's mostly Edo period stuff, but the Edo period gets vastly ignored for the Sengoku Jidai. I get it, Sengoku Jidai. It's it's very sexy. A lot of samurai fighting, but I look, I'm crazy, and I like the idea of being able to potentially use some of these weapons. I learned martial arts to use some of them, and yeah, the this is a good book. Now, I will say this: if you are wanting to learn about Japanese weapons, you should also. And since I have Mr. Cummins in the chat, I would say that he has a book. There it is. Okay, this is a great opportunity. Oh, okay. The book is called Samurai Weapons: The Tools of the Warrior by Don Cunningham. But so yes, if you're wanting to study Japanese weapons, I would also say definitely study Japanese armor. I started studying weapons first, and then I realized that armor is very interesting, like so interesting, and it's so cool to see the workarounds that they use because Japanese armor has the quality of being either really bad or incredible, like incredible. But I would say for so armor, tactics, and everything, this right here, get Mr. Cummins' book. This is a translation of a 17th century scroll from the Natori school. Now here's the cool thing, guys. I'm going to be doing a video soon, and it's going to be up on Mr. Cummins' channel. I know that you guys aren't going to be able to see this that well, but I'm going to start covering like the different helmets, and we'll go from there. But so that'll be something in the future where I link you guys. Really, you're making an Oyori by yourself? That is a daunting task, sir. I wish you all the luck in the world, and if you have the time, you should definitely send me some pictures on Instagram. I'd love to see it. Oh, in Texas, so I have a Bowie knife, and yeah, it's true. When they say like pretty much everybody in Texas owns a gun, I will say this much. If you live in the more rural areas like I do, yeah, that's definitely true. And actually, hey, guys, something that not a lot of people are aware of, this is where I'm going to announce it, so now everybody will know. So a lot of people think that this is just going to be a samurai history channel. We're definitely covering samurai history, but we are going to cover Imperial Japan too. We are. I have a Type 14 Nambu. I have a Type 38 on the way. I have a Type 99 that is that my friend just got that he's actually going to sell me. We're getting them worked on. We're going to fire them. We're going to test them. I want to cover Japanese tanks, tactics, because I bet not a lot of people know this. But while they never used it going forward, did you know that as far as the tank blitzkrieg is concerned, the Japanese would actually do it first? The sad thing is that they just never did it after that. Oh. So get this. The Boshin War is the next war we're going to cover after the Imjin War. I agree. Heian period is definitely underrated. Heian period is really cool. So here's one of the cool things about the Heian period. Did you know that most of the written works that we have for the Heian period comes from the viewpoint of not men, but women? So here's a funny thing about where I live. So you can pretty much leave your door unlocked where I live. And the reason being, very simply, is everybody assumes everybody has a gun out here. And it's true. So no one robs anybody because they don't want to get shot. Thank you, Mr. Cummins. I will never forget. You were my first interview. The audio was terrible, but just getting to chat and get to know you more was amazing. Thank you so much. Klaus! Hey, Klaus, come here. Come here. Do you want to be in the chat? Come on. Hey, come here. Come on. Come on. I know you're not usually allowed in here. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. It's okay. Come on. Come on. Okay, you can go. Okay. I know you're not allowed in here. Go, 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 go. Klaus, go to the restroom. Go to the restroom. Go to the restroom. Klaus, stop. Well, there you go. I mean, if you're isolated, hey, no chance of the Rona being robbed or having to deal with people in general. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Which book is better, Genji or Tokubaya? Um, which book would be better? Um, okay, I'm going to be very bluntly honest with you, and I know this is going to discredit me for a bit, but I have not read either. I would love to, though. At some point, I would love to. Actually, hold on. One of them does sound like really familiar. I might have read excerpts from it, but city life you look forward. Hey, so here's a weird thing. I don't know if you guys know this, but did you know that economically, cities are more efficient than suburbs? Facts. There is another YouTuber, has nothing to do with history. Anyway, they're called Echo Gecko, and I found their video like what I think a month ago. It was very informative about the fact that suburbs are just not economically feasible. They're just not. Trisha, you're on my you're on my are you on my Instagram? Yeah, in Texas we can't offer them hockey, but beer they will accept. Even though I hate beer, beer's bad, guys. It bloats you. I have no doubt about that. I will say this: I actually think that that's really cool, and it's because like society nowadays, it's like if if someone's like intelligent or whatever, like most people would be like, okay, but how hot are they? Do you think you'll ever cover pre-Samurai Warriors weapons or warfare? Absolutely. 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 Vodka, whiskey, or cocktails all the way. So, I'm not a big fan of margaritas, but have you ever tried a jalapeno margarita? Now, look, there's two different kinds. There's kinds that are really hot, and when I say hot, I mean spicy, and then there's ones that are more sour. The sour ones, man, get that crap away. But the spicy ones, oh, let me tell you something. That that's a different experience altogether. So as far as Chokuto is concerned, I have been doing some research and some designing, and I do hope one day to be able to commission a 100% historically accurate Chokuto, and then I am going to try to study the martial arts associated with it, and eventually there will be a video on the sword, how good it was for the time, and also how it was used. Because a lot of people need to know this, and this is that Japanese martial arts were very heavily inspired by Chinese arts, martial arts, and their militaries were also first organized very similarly too. So yes, I don't know if you were part of the chat earlier, but I did cover that we will also be covering Imperial era Japan as well, including weapons, armor, and tactics. The only thing that I'm not going to cover is I'm not going to cover the second Sino-Japanese War or World War II. I might cover elements, but I'm not going to cover either of those in depth. Um, Mostly because I just don't want to get the channel demonetized. Those are very heavy and hard subjects. Obviously, we know why, but I also just I don't want to put content out there that's literally just going to fuel nothing but bad blood. Yeah, so I'm when I start covering like like I said, like nothing World War II or Second Sino-Japanese War. The Yeah, that's always a risk, but I've already been called a weeb, a Japanophile, things like that, which is really kind of crazy because they're making that assessment based off of my channel. Um, I'm actually of Nordic descent. My grandmother does genealogy for a living. I know a lot about my family history. I'm very happy to be of European descent. I love my family history, but it these kind of things, it just comes from people. Like, people have a prepercept idea. Sorry, bad wording. They have a preperceived perception of like what is or isn't the truth, and when you tell something to them that might question that, they react very irrationally. They insult you, things like that. It's weird. Uh, Actually, hey, chat, real quick. Do you guys want me to go over my viewpoint on world history, real quick? Because yeah, the second Sino-Japanese War is it is a touchy subject. It should be. It's a lot of bad things happened. It shouldn't have happened, and honestly, I wouldn't even know how to go about covering something like that, because I would just want everybody to get along, and I don't feel like a subject like that they can. So, I'm going to give you guys my theory because it was actually just touched on chat, and I totally agree. So, here's the thing. When I look at history, I don't think of German history. I don't think of Japanese, Mongolian, native history. What I think of is human history. Because at the end of the day, we're all human. And that's how I view it. I think one of the things that I love about Japanese history so much is that what you think you know about it on the surface is entirely different than what it actually is. And these are people. Like, there's some small genetic differences, but we are like the exact same species. I think that's beautiful. So when I think like Japanese history is kind of like part of my human history, in the same way like German and Norse history would equally be a part of their human history. I don't know if that makes sense. Chat, tell me if that makes sense. Am I crazy? Hey, so as far as like, chimpanzee and everything, that's all about if you believe in evolution or not. Which we're not gonna talk about here. I don't feel like that. Um, I only understand the Crusades. A holy crusader with internet access. Hey, holy crusader with internet access. You're being lied to. No, I'm just playing. History is a mosaic of different fragments. Historians try to make a sense from those fragments to get a proper picture, but there is not only one picture all the time. That is so true. It's so true. So, guys, I this was actually a test. I did not intend this to actually get as far as it did. I absolutely love you guys. You guys are absolutely wonderful. But so I think before I close this test stream, that is a great jumping off point. Let's talk really quick about sources and what is or isn't reliable and how to form ideas. What do we think about that? Should we go over that real quick? Well, so you have to talk about, it's not even just talking about reliable sources, it's how to get a better picture. Because in reality, when you start looking at history, like, and you start to try to form an opinion, an idea, and present it as truth or close to the truth, you have to realize that some sources aren't reliable. While sometimes they can be right, the whole like a clock is right, a broken clock is right at least twice a day. So, because I've also been questioned about like, why doesn't my channel match up with Wikipedia? Let's actually, yes, you know what? We are going to cover this just a little bit. So let's go to Wikipedia. Let's go to Imjin War Wikipedia. No, not, yeah. All sources are biased. Your teacher is absolutely correct. Guys, I'm going to blow your mind. Guess what? I have a bias too. I don't try to have a bias, but I do have a bias. I try very hard to not have one, though. Okay, so scroll up, make sure you can see it, and my big head's not in the way. I hope I can see you tomorrow. Have a good night. So when we look at this over here, we see deaths. Like here's the deaths. Here's the strengths. First of all, look at these numbers. There's a disparity here of about 100,000. So we covered it. I can't remember which of my videos I talked about, but I talked about how I didn't believe the numbers that much. Siege. Guys, tomorrow the dog will not be up like this. And who revised it? Yeah, you have to look at that too. Siege of Pyongyang. Okay. Okay, so we're here. So here's the strengths. So 15,000 to 30,000 for the Japanese. This figure is wrong. It is. And here's the thing. Any historian who says for sure that they know how many were there are lying. And here's the reason why. If you go over to the Great Ming military blogspot, okay. Sorry, it took so long. So anyway, so when we go over to the Great Ming, there is a Chinese historian who covers everything. He critiques a English written book. Just trying to find it. First Battle of Pyongyang. Second. Okay, here we go. So look at this. The author claims that there's about 15,000 troops stationed here. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, look. Here is different records, historical documents. Look at the disparity in these numbers. We have 6,000s, several hundreds, and then it's revised to about 16 to 17,000, then 10,000, then less than 5,000, then around 6,000 to 7,000 men, and then about 15,000 again. Now, let's go over back on Wikipedia. First of all, look at this. Proper browser needed. So it says 15,000 to 30,000. We've already, according to period sources, which, I mean, you can try to track down. Thankfully, the person who runs this has actually sent me some of these documents. Like, he believes them, I believe them. He's very reliable. Anyway, so there is this right here disproves this. So we now have to put into question, well, sorry, puts this in the question. So now when we look at casualties, so who here has actually played any Total War game, period? I know it's a video game, but there is a reason why I'm asking. Okay, cool. So, you know that if you play and you are the attacking force, unless you are using very, like, tricky in-game mechanics, that you are going to lose a lot of men. Am I right? If you're the attacker, you're going to lose a lot of men trying to take any fortification, right? And you know what? Let's parody this with actual history. So anytime the British or the French tried to take a German position in World War I, when they tried to take their trenches, they lost a lot of men. In fact, the Germans actually figured out that if you predominantly play defense, you lose less men, and the enemy will always lose a lot more. They got really good at it. So now look at these numbers over here. For the Ming strength, they have 43,000. They have 10,000 Joseon. Now, I covered this in my video. There's a little bit of a difference of that. But you know what? This number isn't that inaccurate. It really isn't. They had a little bit less, but it's not that inaccurate. Anyway, they're literally saying that somehow that in combat you would have 13,000 to, sorry, not 13,000, 1,300 to 1,700 killed in combat, while the Ming numbers over here show 796 killed as the attackers opened up. We are saying that even though the Japanese would have had gunpowder weapons, that they would have killed fewer while having walls to protect themselves than the Ming would have had. And here's another thing. So just covering that one battle, it really shows just how you have to keep an open mind and you have to use multiple sources and you really have to understand what you're reading and who wrote it, like the person in chat said. The reason why you have to do this is because some figures and numbers, even if they're the only ones, aren't always accurate. I'll give you a great example. So one thing that happened after the battle was the Koreans did not trust these figures because they noticed, apparently, that there was dead Korean civilians that were being counted amongst the Japanese dead. And it was the Ming Chinese who were counting the dead after the battle. The Beijing courts themselves did not believe these death tolls and sent people to investigate. Problem being is that by the time they got there, obviously bodies would have been buried, so on, like cremated, so on and so forth. So what does this tell us? Not much. What it tells us is that these figures are not that reliable. I got called a Wikipedia basher by pointing this out once. So one of the sources that I like to use is this. It is the Book of Corrections, Reflections on the National Crisis During the Japanese Invasions of Korea. It is not the only source that I use. I like to use Chinese sources, Japanese sources, and Korean sources. When the three sides agree, I typically trust that more than if only one side says it. So the fact that the Beijing court sent people to investigate because the figures are weird, the Koreans are saying some really weird stuff was happening. The figures themselves don't make sense. And what we know from, an attacking force that attacks a defender that has a fortified position, they're exposed versus the defenders are not exposed. The defenders typically have an advantage. It's the reason why in Europe and definitely in Japan and pretty much all over, if there was a heavily fortified area, they had long sieges because they knew that a defending force could help in battles could take on a much larger force. The Germans in World War I knew this. Heck, in the Imjin War, the Koreans show that they are amazing at defending positions. So, build the best trenches when you can consider. Hey, I'm surprised to be sure, but a welcome one. Hey, I recognize a Star Wars quote when I see one. Unless the Japanese were without any supplies. So that's another thing. That is something we also have to question. What were the state of Japanese supplies? Were they out of bullets and gunpowder? Were they out of the lacquer to help repair their armor? Armor in Japan is very heavily dependent on lacquer. What is the conditions of their supplies? I did in a pinned post on one of them where we talked about the Yongsan Incident, because the Yongsan Incident, by most Western sources, is described as being the biggest piece of evidence of how low the supplies were in Japan. The problem is, and the Great Ming Military Blog Spot is a great source to find it. I don't, where is it? Anyway, it didn't happen, is the problem. And in fact, that there was even some discussions in negotiations where the Japanese said, like, hey, when we leave, we'll leave you some rice. So it depends on what supplies they did or didn't have. It's really, it's kind of crazy when you think about it, because pretty much all Western source material on the subject is filled with heavy bias and misinformation. Honestly, like, guys, like, if you have the ability, obviously you should go to my Patreon too. But the Great Ming Military Blogspot has a Patreon open for just $1 a month. You should definitely go do it. The guy's information is phenomenal. Yeah, that is very true about, like, the certain Japanese mountain fortresses being almost impossible to storm. And the crazy thing about certain fortifications is it doesn't matter how strong the walls are or anything. Just geography alone can defeat the enemy. True. I will say this though, Japan, the people of Japan are very their castles are nationalized for the most part. I think they're all nationalized, which is very lucky because it means that they get restored, rebuilt. Castles in Europe are not as lucky. There's so much history that is rotting away in Europe. I mean, Japan has this beautiful tradition of keeping history alive. Most of the martial arts and things like that, they're a lot of them are like really old, 200, 300, even older than that. They the Japanese people respect history and tradition, and while I'm not saying that Europeans don't, I'm saying that they haven't had as much respect in that sense. And I think the greatest example is the fact that so many castles in Europe have fallen into disrepair. Was the name of that patron? Uh, if we're talking about the Great Ming, so what you can do is you can go there, and they have just go to greatmingmilitary.blogspot.com, and then they have their button right at the front of the page. So yeah, and I wish Europe had adopted a very similar system, or even today. Like I said, just so many of those castles has fallen into disrepair. And guys, castles in Europe are just like, okay, everybody know the Disney castles, right? The Disney castle, like, you know, where it says like Disney, it shows the little castle, right? check this out. Like, look at that. I can actually slightly explain why the Chinese never did build castles the same way like Europe or Japan would. But anyway, hold on. Let me say this though. This castle right here, German castles are what inspired the imagery for the Disney castle. German castles are just stunning, and there's so many stunning different designs and architecture all throughout Europe. But the sad thing is, how long are these going to last? Because unless they're nationalized, unless like there's like public funding that goes to keeping these works of history alive, they will disappear. Because the thing is that in private hands, almost no one has the money to keep it up. Anyway, yes, man, we have a lot of like really smart people in chat, and I love it. But so one of the biggest reasons why the Chinese did not build castles the same way is because of how warfare was fought, especially with gunpowder weapons. So, like, say like the Ottomans. The Ottomans built some of the biggest field cannons of their day, right? And they did it to take down huge stone European walls. Think about the taking of Constantinople. There's actually a great like docu-series on Netflix. Unlike Battle for Japan, am I right? But but yeah, they had huge cannons. So why didn't the Chinese build cannons like that? It's because their walls and their earthen works were so much thicker that huge cannons would not be able to take them down. The Chinese also would be able to mobilize huge armies to where castles, they don't work as well as they would in, say, Japanese warfare or European warfare. And cannons are made of smaller bore sizes as opposed to being thicker, because cannons just can't take down these walls. In fact, the Great Ming actually does... Did I close it out? I can't believe I did that. The Great Ming would actually... They have a whole section on like siege defenses and things like that. Actually, these are like siege, like these are like siege engines and stuff like that. But somewhere on here, they do discuss the fact that I think it's like there was huge mounds of like dirt and clay and other things, and then you had your stone walls, and like if your European wall is about this thick, then a Chinese wall is like 5 times its thickness. So I don't know. That's crazy. Yes, the cannons were a lot lighter than European or Ottoman. Um, they just didn't need them to be heavy. The Ming had really good cavalry, as we've seen in this war. So they like to keep things mobile. Heavy cannons are not mobile, and would actually heavy cannons have to be set up, protected. And if you're able to get an army behind, say a mobile like cavalry army, you could actually take those sections fairly easy, or at least that was their concern, right? So instead, they focus on light cannons, light engines of war. That way they could be moved faster. And even then, in the Imjin War, cannons don't play that big of a part of this war. And it's because they can't keep up with the cavalry. So could you imagine if they were wheeling around even heavier cannons? Like, they probably wouldn't have been there for the siege of Pyongyang. Okay, so that particular castle is funded by the Bavarian state, and that's actually probably why that castle looks so beautiful. Um, yeah, I just know there's so many castles in like Scotland and just the UK in general. If I remember right, there's just so many castles that have fallen in disrepair, and it's because the people that privately own them, they just don't have the money to fix them. And even if they did have the money to fix them, a lot of them wouldn't spend the money on that anyway because they can't get that money back. Was this the one I pulled up? Yeah, I guess it was. Okay. Yeah, 19th century. Yeah, wow. Place was King Ludwig II of Bavaria as a retreat in honor of Bishop Wagner. Wow. I'll admit I don't know everything there is to know about German castles. I heard that about the whole like Disney logo and was really just mind blown. And it's I think hey chat, correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Japan per square mile have the most castles in the entire world? I heard that. Is that true? Is the epitome of not a castle? I can see that. Nope. Who has the most castles per square mile? That is Wales. Really? Really? Cas- has more than 600 castles in Wales, more per square than anywhere in the world. Wow. Guys, I just learned something about, look, maybe I can teach you something, and maybe you can teach me something. Heck yeah, that's what this is all about. So I know Wales is relatively a small country, right, guys? Any Welsh in chat? Independent Wales, independent Scotland? No, maybe. That is I did though. I've learned something new. Yeah, so you're right. That technically is a palace. The other one, the one that was built in the 19th century, is a palace, while as this is definitely a castle. That, but you see, look, this is look. Let me see if I can bring this up because this is what I'm talking about. Oh no, I don't want to sign up. I don't want to give you my email address. I don't want you to track me down. It's the most harmful. Bohemia does. I believe that. Anyway, I don't know if you how like well like you can see some of these pictures. They're, some of them are fairly small, but it's okay. So here's a question because I've had this before and they've disagreed with me. See, me, I'm a big supporter of restoration, and some people aren't. So what do you think? Some of these castles, like, would you be in support of them being restored to how they were originally supposed to be, or should we just William the Bastard? Right. Okay, I think my question got cut off. Like I don't know why. Um, but my question was, should we restore castles to the way they were, or should we just preserve them the way they are currently? There's value in leaving them as is. Um, yeah. Okay. So I know I said I had to go, and I technically do, but so what do we think about restoring Japanese armor then? Like say something like this. Like this is like a Edo period. This is not ninja armor. Did Korean use castles? They did. Uh, Koreans definitely have castles. In fact, uh, the Koreans are really good at siege defense, and it is one of the. There's a multitude of reasons why the Japanese had a hard time attacking Korean castles, And in fact, if you ask me that question tomorrow, we will get into it really in depth if you want. That's true. You can learn a lot from how a fortification was destroyed. Um, World War II stuff, but yeah, the some of the bunkers that the Germans built, especially like on Normandy, that special concrete was actually really quite special when you actually learn how much like destruction, how much how do you say cannon shot, like the naval cannons, how much they had to be hit from bombs and such, and yeah, it's kind of crazy. Actually, this style of Kasari armor, it could be worn under, but this could a lot of times this was actually worn on top. I'll even show you a picture. These photo armor. Now, most of these photos in the Edo period are, of course, like of actors, but you can actually see that most of these chaps right here are they're wearing it over. This stuff was commonly worn by police, but anyway, the real question I had is like, so what do we feel about restoration towards armor? Because I've heard people say that they believe that you should not restore Japanese armor because it takes away the specialness or something and so forth. But I've always very disagreed with that. Ooh, what happened? I've always been a big supporter of getting things restored because even though this one isn't in particularly bad condition, it if if we see here, I mean, the rust eats at metal. So this is getting thinner and thinner as time goes on. This I would probably say this is Japanese cotton, but this cotton is being eaten away. Rust can actually affect fabric. It can help eat away at fabric. So what do you guys think? You're looking forward to the test? I am looking forward to doing the test. Guys, anyone chat, if you're not a part of my Patreon right now and you want to support Real History, go check out my Patreon. And the reason why is because my Patreon is almost exclusively going to be used to fund bigger tests, big videos. So to do the video that I'm looking at, realistically, I'm looking at anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000 for this test because I'm going to want to buy a smaller camera that can view the target up close. We're going to need pressure sensors because when it comes to arrows, when it hits the armor, whether it pierces flesh or not it's not the only thing that an arrow can do. If an arrow hits you dead center and you're wearing, say, would be like some of the best plate armor you can get, like a Maximilian breastplate or something like that. Maximilian, a Gothic style, Milanese. Anyway, you take the best chest plate possible, and if someone gets hit with an arrow dead center, they feel it. It's the reason why the breastplates started to be so far away from the skin so there could be more padding because you still feel it. So I want to get pressure sensors, I think that's what they're called, so we can measure exactly how much pressure that person would feel. Because I can't remember which video, I think it was Todd's workshop, Anyway, the archer said that he had worn full plate armor before, or that he knows. He just said that if someone got hit with like say the 160-pound English longbow, it wins you instantly. It takes all the air out of your lungs. Just one arrow. So what if it hits you on the arm then? What if it hits your hand? What if it hits you directly on the forehead? Now, like, there's certain parts of the body that the armor is going to be thicker than others. But my point is that what kind of damage could a Japanese bow, the Wakyu, what could this actually do? Because the arrow shaft is much longer. And when it travels in air, it almost looks like it's swimming. And when it hits the target, it almost looks like it's drilling into the target, which is a lot different than a lot of your European bows where the wood is made of a much more stiffer, I don't want to say brittle because it wasn't brittle, but they would break. So when they hit, the shaft would just break. I don't really know which one would do more damage because you have splinters on the air one. The air one's like drilling through. These are all things that need to be tested out. Yeah, yeah. So like I'm exploring the different ways that this can be done. Most of the money would have to go into having the actual bow made traditionally, because there is anywhere between 2 to 5 man bows, which means it takes that many men supposedly to string said bow. But it needs to be done traditionally, because if we find out that, say, the bow is, say, weaker than we thought, this needs to be recorded, although I don't think it will be. But that alone would be pretty expensive, because we'd either have to purchase one that had been recently made up to correct specifications, like, and the time period that I'm looking at would be a 14th century bow, because apparently the designs are a little bit different in between your different areas. You know, your Momoyama, Nambukcho, like those. Apparently the bows are differently made. So these are all things that would have to be figured in. I'd have to find a traditional craftsman, because this is not something that could be made outside of Japan. A lot of those traditional crafts they're only done in Japan by very specific people. It'll be expensive, it'll take a long time, but that's the goal. That is the goal. And I don't know. What do you guys think? If it's corroding, it's worthwhile to restore it. I agree. Look, and that's the thing. If like the armor is in good condition, there's no rust, the fabric's not getting eaten away, like there's no mildew. Because that's the other thing. Like here, if I was to buy traditional armor, I would have to have a dehumidifier. I would actually have to purchase a bunch of different things, because in the environment where I live in, South Texas, the humidity here would eat it up. It just would. Yeah, you're right. It does make no sense that people take the measurements of modern Kyoto bows, because those bows are sport bows. And sport bows and war bows are entirely two different things. They're two different animals. As a benchmark, I'd be very interested in doing that, honestly. I think a good comparison would be the Mongolian compound bow, because we all know, everybody, whether you're a fan of HEMA, Japan, Korean bows, anything, everybody has to admit Mongolian bows are really good. They're really good quality. So that's a good idea. I'll definitely be doing that. Japanese armor is stored under glass in museums. European armor, they just let rust or blacken it, is a quick way to preserve metal. It is. I think that's like what the Blackened Riders. I think they were German mercenaries. They were the ones that like really they made sure all their armor was like that. Yeah. Um, but the like lacquer is such an important part, because a lot of people think that lacquer for Japanese armor is just to help preserve it from their humid weather. And while it definitely has that function, um, I have it on really good source from a Katsuchi that lacquer itself is a form of armor, and that he knows of a compound mixture where you use volcanic ash and another compound which he won't tell me because it is a secret, and that there's three different layers of lacquer that you have to put on. They're really thick layers too, and in fact he said that each layer could actually be like, you know, multiple coats to be considered its own true layer. And that when the whole thing is dried and everything, that it's very much akin to ceramic, which is fascinating. Armor is Japanese armor is a lot of people paint it with a broad stroke brush. And tomorrow, like if somebody asks me in chat, I'll show a couple of books that people can look at to get a better idea of it. I'm still learning a lot about Japanese armor. I don't feel like it's something that you can just study in depth for like say a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years and then suddenly know. I really feel like it's a lifelong pursuit, because even as long as I've been running the Japan at War Instagram, where I show different types of armor, so on and so forth, I see new stuff all the time. I see new stuff all the time. It's crazy. But yeah, the lacquer itself, lacquer. But there were some provinces that had a particular style. Some like the lacquer work that might be in like say southern Kyushu might be different than say mid Honshu, but the the next province over may have a different compound in which they do the Urushi lacquer. But which is it really is crazy to think that you can't just say this region would have better armor. Then you have to go down to this one maker who made this lacquer would have made it better than the guy down the street or whatever. It's a wild thought. Yeah, yeah, it can. There is I asked that Katsuchi what was the thinnest armor he's ever worked with, and he said when he stripped all the lacquer off of it, um, that the he said the tetsu was thin as paper, and that you could almost see through it. Now I'm pretty sure he was just using descriptive words, but I don't think he was being poetic with his words by saying it's thin as paper. I definitely think that some some armor is okay. He actually said that there are some pieces of armor where the metal is not the armor at all, where literally the metal acts as a barrier to hold all the lacquer onto, and it's really the lacquer that is the armor, which is crazy, right? I mean, right? Yeah, the golden, like the Kimpaku like style, which is really cool. Um, I'm actually wanting to experiment to see if I can create, I guess you would say, like a cosplayer. I don't want to call it cosplay, but someone who wants to make reproduction armor look as realistic as possible, but without, like, the Urushi lacquer techniques. Because the facts are is that while some people say that they might know these techniques, in reality, very few people would know this because it's an oral tradition, not a written tradition. Yeah, yeah. And man, that's a like the whole thing about lost history and everything is actually one of the biggest reasons why I view Japanese history and really all history as human history. Because the reality is that history, if it's not something that has been described as not being so much like Greco Roman wrestling, but actually being described as more like judo, because apparently there was some palm strikes, but that's it. There wasn't any other strikes. That it was all about like grappling and throwing your opponent to the ground. Now here's the thing: there's a couple of moves apparently that have been recorded in a couple of sagas or whatever, but it was mostly a oral, uh, like spoken art, and now it's just gone. So, and even with like Japanese history, there is some information that is hoarded by certain people, and they don't want it spread because they like things to be kept a secret. And the problem is that, okay, if there's a lot of people in on that secret, then I guess that's okay. Kind of like the Urushi lacquer, like it is a secret. Like you can't just Google like how to do like Urushi lacquer for Japanese armor and find historically accurate stuff. But there's a lot of people who know how to do it. My biggest fear is that stuff that isn't recorded down will eventually get lost. What happens if, I mean, what happens if someone just forgets? It happens. What happens if the person who has that information gets hit by a bus? Well, then whatever information that he didn't record down, or if someone else doesn't know, that information is lost until a written record is found. Yeah, that statement about a 5 millimeter thick plate in Japanese armor, absolutely correct. A lot of people do take the Edo period stuff as like fact. They're like, okay, this stuff is thin. That means all Japanese armor was really thin, and that is, yeah, that's not exactly true now, is it? Because we do know that they were really good at copying other armor and adapting, and even making it their own. They did it with the it's called a Momonari, I think. They took the idea off of Italian cabassets and they really made it its own thing. I posted a picture of a Kimpaku, the a gold one that Tachibana Munishige equipped some of his men with. I think, if I remember right, 200 were found, but these helmets were actually promoted as being bulletproof, and it's because the metal was thick. But not only that, and I'm going to find it again. Apparently, there was a university study that examined certain pieces of Japanese chestplate armor, particularly the ones that have like the pigeon like chest wedge, and they found that while not as thick as some European counterparts, what they did find is that it was a duplex armor, right? So what is a duplex? It means like two different types of metal. So the outer side was a hardened steel, and then the inner was soft iron. And the reason is because hard steel, it's hard, but it breaks and it cracks opposed to bending. While iron, soft iron particularly, will bend. So as the front layer takes most of the impact from, say, like a bullet shot, eventually it will crack. So instead of sending shards into the person's body, what the soft iron would do is it would deform to absorb most of the blow. And if there was any shards from the steel, it could absorb that as well. I need to look for that again. I remember reading the study. It blew my mind. I don't know why I didn't save it to my computer, but I'm wanting to put a video out on that too. The bulletproof armor, because some of them actually truly were. But the cool thing about that duplex armor is that it means that you could have the same protection, but with a thinner style of armor. Really cool stuff. You're right. Yeah, urushi itself is actually really common. Anyone can actually buy it. It's the other compounds and how to do it and dry it that makes it so special. Like the I actually don't know if I could show it on stream. I own a late period Type 14 Nambu handgun, and the wood grips are covered in urushi. You're absolutely right about the difference between the Edo armor and the Sengoku armor. You're absolutely correct. Most of those duplex armors weren't those also Nanbando? Yes, yes. But so here's the thing about Namban armor, because Namban is my favorite style. It's so cool. It is literally East and West fused together. I love that. I'm actually trying to build my own Namban armor. So you heard it here, folks. But Namban armor wasn't worn in battle as much as people think they were. And here's the reason why. Because even if you could copy the style, repairing stuff like that, it's not as easy. An armor smith to actually repair something like that, he pretty much has to clear out his entire schedule. So only the most wealthy, powerful samurai lords would be able to do that in the first place. For the armor to clear out his schedule for that. But a lot of the stuff that was imported, you didn't want to damage it. So what Namban armor suits were mostly used for as a show of wealth and power. It's like saying like, hey, I'm so wealthy, I'm so powerful, and I'm so cultured that I have this weird, mysterious nation's armor, and I've adapted it for my own. And it was used as a display. So duplex armors were that, and there were Namban pieces, but most of your armor that would be used in combat would be a native style of armors. And those are the ones I'm most interested in because there is, and Japanese armor and the terminology is very complex. I'm still learning it myself. But there is a particular style of pigeon-chested Okigawa do, which is the typical one with the lames. And apparently those lames were hardened steel, and then there's a backing piece of metal, and that was soft iron. Crazy. Hatokido style. Yeah, no, there is Oyori for me. I love that you love Oyori armor. Oyori does not get a lot of love. A lot of people just look at it and just say it's just an ugly, like boxy piece of armor, and you know, I love it. I think it's beautiful. I really do. And it's really cool because you can still see some of the elements of some of the Korean armor that, but Oyori, it's really when Japanese armor. My personal opinion, where you can say that this is a truly like identifiable Japanese, culturally Japanese armor. Anyway, it's beautiful. I love that you love it. Nyodo is my favorite style. I love Nyodo. The one that Kado Kiyomasa, that's my favorite samurai too. I love that one. I think it's really cool. I thought about a while ago actually like having one made when I did have the money, but yeah, finding that the someone who knows how to do the hammer work required to do that is a little bit harder. Is shaped after the modern kendo armor. I think I read that in a book. That's really cool. On LARP. Do you hold? Do you run? Do you? Oh, okay. I think. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Oyori is definitely because I mean Oyori, it weighs on your shoulders as opposed to on your hips. But you know that's horse stuff. I mean, it'd be really cool if you could take a horse in the LARP, though, right? And the Sengokus. But that's because like the Oyori is just absolutely beautiful. The amount of artistry and elegance, especially with the your you know your Osode with the different like lacing styles, it it is so incredibly beautiful. I would easily say if someone had to say ask me like what my favorite Japanese armor is, it would be Namban first. But if someone really pressed me, I think Oyori would probably be my second favorite style, just because it is definitely armor. It is definitely heavy armor, but it's 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 there's so much art that goes into it that most people when they look at it they're like, oh yeah, that's art, and they say that before they think of it as armor. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just romanticizing it, but hey, you know what's the great thing though? In Texas, especially out where I live, owning a horse is actually not that hard. We used to have a horse that would come into our yard, and when I used to go to work, it'd just be like in our yard, just eating our grass, and it'd just like come up to the house. It'd be like, oh, hey, what's up? And like I'd pet it and everything. It was wild. Oh man, like yeah, that's the other thing. I would like to have a section made of traditional Oyori armor so we could actually test it, because the rawhide, it's thick, it's hard, then it's covered in many layers of lacquer, and then you have a backing layer of leather, then you have a front layer of leather. I mean, we're talking about so many layers. And that's not even to say that you could actually have like rotating the Kazane scales, like one's rawhide, one's iron, one's rawhide, one's iron, and so on and so forth. And that they stack on top of each other. I don't think people get that about scale armor, is that if you have like 1 millimeter scale and another millimeter scale and you stack them on top of it, that's 2 millimeters worth of armor. But and the rawhide is what I think the rawhide used is like what 3 to 5 millimeters. I know that it does vary depending on the pieces and the preferences of the wearer, but yeah. So the people who say that is not, a lot of people are like, oh, samurai armor, it's like thin and it's lightweight, and I'm like, hey guys, guess what? Some of those Oyori pieces, they're just as heavy as the heaviest harnesses used in Europe. And the difference is that the guy wearing that was probably like 5'2" and not 6 feet tall. Actually, I think the common size for a European knight was 5'10", but you understand what I'm saying. Sengoku Daimyo. That is a definitely good source. Unless you can go for a dome to fix the weight distribution. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think your magic is nothing compared to my howitzer. Yeah. There's a book by hold on, let me go look at it real quick. Okay. So I'm pretty sure some of you might already know this author, but if you're really interested in real samurai armor, like knowing the real stuff, and you're okay spending like a good bit of money on it because it is not a cheap book, then Samurai Armor by Trevor Absalon, that's a great book. It is. It is just a great book. It's a great piece of reference material. So I used this book probably the most when it comes to referencing Japanese armor. Now the sad thing is that there's only one volume. There was supposed to be a volume 2 that was supposed to come out that covers like helmets. Never happened. And hey, if anyone in chat wants to go spam him and email him to like push out that book, I'd appreciate it because I want it. This covers just the chest plate or the do, but that is honestly, when we talk about Japanese armor, the helmet and the do are the cuirass is the most important one. Yeah. Uses less protection later. I think Song Dynasty, Tang. That is like as far as like Chinese armor goes, like I'm not an expert. The only thing I can say is that it's really just a change in warfare, how it's fought, things like that. We always have to remember armor is a compromise between mobility, weight, um, protection, like so on and so forth. There's no such thing as one piece of armor is better than another piece of armor, hands down. It's one of the reasons why the East versus West debate is so stupid, in my opinion, because while we can engage in hypothetical conversations, what we actually see is fanboys on either side who start to ignore actual pieces of information because it doesn't fit their narrative. Like, I can appreciate that European armor is heavier, and that if you were to get hit with a blunt force weapon, that the European harness is probably going to protect you a lot better than pretty much any Japanese armor would. However, and this is something that not a lot of people consider when it comes to Japanese armor. Japanese armor is actually really easy to take off in the heat of the moment if you need to. I'll give you a great example. So, samurai, when they had to cross rivers, sometimes would actually just take off their chest plate. Just take off their do. Just take it off. The how'd say the the thigh protectors, it's a belt. Take it off. Boom. I don't need it. It's weighing me down. I'm trying to climb this castle wall. I'm trying to climb this ladder. It's weighing me down. I don't need it. I can just take it off. And it literally takes me maybe a minute to do it. You can't really do that with a lot of European armors. Now, the argument then would have to be that, well, a knight wouldn't be doing that anyway. He wouldn't be climbing a ladder. And that's where I would say exactly. So comparing the two suits of armor is really quite ridiculous because no, comparing it's not ridiculous, but saying one is better than the other is because it was used for different stuff. You know, there's pros and cons to both, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Yeah, you got me. There is at least any type of armor is definitely better than none. Or actually, wait. What if that armor is so badly damaged that it's unusable at that point and only serves to weigh you down? Which is why a lot of Japanese abandoned some of their armor in the Imjin War. Yes, they did have war picks. They had axes. They had you know what? Here, let me show you one of my more rare pieces of weapons slash tools. Okay, I'm back. Are you guys ready for one of the weirdest weapons slash tools ever? Nope, not the hook, although it does have hook-like properties. Okay, I teased you long enough. Right? It's a jute, right? Check this out. It's not a jute. And look, it has a ring. And it's used two different ways. Hold it like this, it's a jute. You hold it this way, you can use this to pull down screens in burning houses. But I'll have to find the woodblock print on this again. This little like slightly bladish like spike. There is a woodblock print where it actually shows an Edo period cop beating a man and stabbing him over and over with this. What do you guys think? Is this not weird? Oh, and by the way, this thing right here, what you would do is you would put a chain or a rope around that with a weight, so that when you do block with the jite like part, this wraps around them, and you can use it to to wrestle them to the ground and restrain them. Raphael, hey man, cheers from Brazil. Hey, cheers to you. Awesome. We got someone from Brazil in chat. Awesome. Tobiguchi. I think, if I remember right, this is called a Tobiguchi. I think that this is. It's I thought it was a just a weird jitte at the time, but yeah, I've forgotten the name. The sad thing is that when you're constantly doing research and you're trying to read like multiple books and you're trying to not just understand like Japanese armor and warfare and culture and things like that, but you're also trying to learn European and Chinese and Korean, you forget stuff as much as you learn it. Okay, well guys, I've had a lot of fun. Male armor is more common in Edo period. That's absolutely correct. I had a lot of fun. I only thought this was going to be a test stream. I thought I was going to be done in like 10, 20 minutes. I had a lot of fun. And we will still have the live stream tomorrow. So I'm going to say good night for now and good morning tomorrow. It was a lot of fun. Like seriously, guys. Like, thank you so much. Like, I really had a lot of fun doing this. But I'm also like sweating a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the most awesome shower that I can possibly have. But yes, I had a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much. We will chat tomorrow. We will have a lot of fun. Hey, we're going to do that segment. So yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to have that segment tomorrow. It's going to be on, do I personally think that Spain really could have successfully invaded Ming China in the 16th century, late 16th century? All right, anyway, see you next time. Oh, by the way, like if you can donate, that's awesome. If you want to join my Patreon, that's even better. Super chats tomorrow would be very, very welcome. Literally everything is going to go towards doing that bow test. Literally everything. It's going to be a good minute before I can do that, but everything that in any of the live streams or whatever, it's going to go to that test. So when you donate to me or whatever, you're not donating so I can get a cup of coffee. You're donating simply so that I can do just tests. And I have so many ideas, and we'll probably talk about it tomorrow. Anyway,